the screaming started at exactly 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon that would change everything forever. Get out! Get out of our house right now! My daughter-in-law Vanessa's voice cut through the air like a knife, her face twisted with a rage I'd never seen before. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me like I was some kind of disease she needed to get rid of. "We don't need your miserable pension anymore, you old hag," she shrieked, her voice getting higher with each word. "Just pack your bags and go die somewhere else." I stood there in the living room, my 72-year-old hands shaking slightly as I watched my own son Brandon nodding along with every cruel word. Brandon, the little boy I had raised alone after his father left us when he was just 5 years old. Brandon, who I had worked double shifts at the diner to put through college. Brandon, who was now looking at me like I was nothing more than garbage. "Mom, you heard her," Brandon said, his voice cold as ice. "We won $49 million today. $49 million. We don't need you taking up space in our house anymore. We don't need your tiny pension check. We don't need you." The lottery ticket sat on the coffee table between us, those magical numbers still glowing on the paper. 7/14/23/30, 1/42/49. The same numbers I had been playing every week for the past 6 months since I moved in with them after my husband Harold's funeral. Vanessa grabbed a trash bag from the kitchen and threw it at my feet. The plastic crinkled as it hit the hardwood floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent house like a slap across my face. "Start packing. I want you gone before dinner. We're celebrating tonight, and we don't want to look at your pathetic face while we're planning our new life." "Our new life," Brandon repeated, his eyes shining with greed like a child staring at candy. "No more worrying about bills. No more listening to you complain about your aches and pains. No more pretending we care about your boring stories about the good old days." Vanessa walked over to the mantel and picked up the framed photo of me and Harold on our wedding day. Without breaking eye contact, she dropped it into the trash bag. The glass shattered with a sharp crack that made my heart jump. "That's what I think of your memories," she sneered. "Worthless, just like you." Brandon laughed, actually laughed, as he watched his wife destroy the only picture I had left of my wedding day. "Finally, we can redecorate this place without having to look at all your old junk." I felt something break inside my chest, but it wasn't my heart. It was something else entirely. Something that had been building up for months as I watched these two people show their true colors. Something that had been waiting for exactly this moment. And then I started laughing. It began as a small chuckle, but it grew louder and louder until I was laughing so hard that tears ran down my cheeks. I laughed until my sides hurt, until I had to hold onto the back of the couch to keep from falling over. I laughed like I had just heard the funniest joke in the world. Vanessa and Brandon stopped their victory dance and stared at me like I had completely lost my mind. The confident smirks melted off their faces, replaced by confusion and something that looked almost like fear. What are you laughing about?" Vanessa stammered, her voice losing all its earlier confidence. "Have you completely lost it, Mom?" Brandon asked, taking a step back from me like my laughter might be contagious. I wiped the tears from my eyes and looked at both of them, these two greedy people who thought they had just hit the jackpot. The laughter died in my throat, replaced by something much more dangerous. Something that made the air in the room feel heavy and electric. "Oh, my dear children," I said, my voice suddenly calm and steady as a lake before a storm. "Before you start throwing me out on the street and planning your fancy new lives with your millions of dollars." I paused, watching as their faces began to change from anger to confusion to something that looked suspiciously like panic. "Did you even bother to check whose name is actually written on that lottery ticket?" 6 months earlier, the rain was pouring down like the sky was crying as I stood on Brandon and Vanessa's front porch, with nothing but 2 old suitcases and a broken heart. Harold had been gone for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the heart attack took him away from me in the middle of the night. 3 weeks since I realized that our tiny apartment was too expensive for just my pension check. 3 weeks since I had to swallow my pride and ask my son if I could stay with his family. "It's only temporary," I had promised Brandon over the phone, just until I figure things out. But we both knew the truth. At 72 years old, with arthritis in my hands and only $800 a month coming in, I didn't have many options. Brandon opened the door that first day with a forced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hey, Mom, come on in. We've got the guest room ready for you." Vanessa appeared behind him, her smile even faker than his. She was wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension, and her jewelry sparkled under the hallway light. "Dorothy, so good to see you," she said, giving me a hug that felt like hugging a mannequin. "We're so sorry for your loss." But I could see it in her eyes even then. The calculation, the resentment, the way she looked at my old suitcases like they were bringing poverty into her perfect house. The first few weeks weren't too bad. I tried to stay out of their way, spending most of my time in the small guest room or helping with dinner. I even insisted on contributing my pension check to help with groceries and utilities. "You don't have to do that, Mom," Brandon had said, but his hand was already reaching for the check. "I want to pull my weight," I told him. "I'm not a charity case." Tyler, their 16-year-old son, was the only bright spot in those early days. He would sit with me in the evenings, asking about his grandfather and listening to my stories about the old days. He was nothing like his parents, with their constant complaints about money and their obsession with keeping up appearances. "Grandma Dorothy," he said one evening as we watched TV together, "I'm glad you're here. The house feels more like a home now." But as the weeks turned into months, I started to notice things. The way Vanessa would roll her eyes when I asked for help opening a jar. The way Brandon would sigh heavily whenever I mentioned needing new medication. The whispered conversations that stopped the moment I walked into a room. "She's eating us out of house and home," I heard Vanessa say one night through the thin walls. "And that pension barely covers anything," Brandon replied. "We're basically supporting her for free." "For free?" "She's your mother, Brandon. She raised you by herself after your father left. That was her choice. I didn't ask to be born." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling and wondering how I had raised such a selfish man. It was around that time that I started buying lottery tickets. Every Tuesday, I would walk to the corner store and spend $5 on the same numbers: 7, 14, 20, 330, 140, 249. Harold's birthday, my birthday, and the day we got married. "Maybe Harold will send us some luck from heaven," I whispered to his picture every week as I tucked the ticket into my purse. The store clerk, an elderly man named George, always smiled when he saw me coming. "The usual numbers, Mrs. Peterson," he would ask. "The usual numbers, George. One day they're going to make me rich." We would both laugh, but deep down, I wasn't really joking. I was praying. Praying for a miracle that would give me back my independence. Praying for a way out of a house where I was clearly not wanted. I never told Brandon and Vanessa about the lottery tickets. It seemed silly to mention spending $5 a week when they were already complaining about every penny. Besides, it was my money, my small rebellion against feeling completely helpless. Little did I know that those $5 a week would soon change everything. Tuesday, March 15th started like any other day. I woke up at 6 a.m., made myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table watching the morning news while Brandon and Vanessa got ready for work. "Don't forget to pick up milk on your way home," Vanessa called out as she grabbed her purse. "And maybe something decent for dinner. I'm tired of eating cheap pasta every night." I wanted to remind her that my pension money was helping pay for that cheap pasta, but I bit my tongue. I had learned to pick my battles over the past 6 months. "Tyler has basketball practice until 6, Brandon said, not even looking at me as he headed for the door. "Try not to burn the house down while we're gone." The joke stung because it wasn't really a joke. They treated me like I was helpless, like I couldn't be trusted to take care of myself even though I had been living independently for 72 years. After they left, the house felt peaceful for the first time all week. I did some light cleaning, watched my morning shows, and around noon, I decided to take my weekly walk to George's corner store. The spring air felt good on my face as I made my way down the familiar sidewalk. My arthritis wasn't bothering me too much today, and I actually felt hopeful for some reason I couldn't explain. "Mrs. Peterson," George called out as I walked through the door. "Right on time for your Tuesday ticket?" "You know me too well, George," I said, pulling a $5 bill from my purse. "Same numbers as always. 7, 14, 23, 30, 1, 42, 49, he recited as he filled out the ticket. "One day these numbers are going to make you a millionaire." "From your mouth to God's ears," I laughed, tucking the ticket safely into my wallet. I spent the rest of the afternoon reading one of Tyler's old books and preparing a simple dinner. Brandon and Vanessa came home around 5:30, both looking stressed and tired. "The car needs new tires," Brandon announced as he threw his keys on the counter. "Another $800 we don't have?" "Maybe if your mother contributed more than her tiny pension," Vanessa muttered under her breath, but loud enough for me to hear. I pretended not to notice and continued stirring the soup I was making. Tyler came home from practice an hour later, sweaty and hungry, but still managing to give me a hug. "Smells good, Grandma," he said. "What are we having?" "Vegetable soup and grilled cheese," I replied. "Your favorite." "Everything you make is my favorite," he grinned, and for a moment I remembered why I loved being part of a family. After dinner, we all settled into the living room to watch TV. It was 8 p.m. when the lottery drawing came on. I always watched it, even though I never expected anything to happen. It was just part of my Tuesday routine. "And tonight's winning numbers are," the announcer said with his usual dramatic pause, 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, and 49. My heart stopped. I sat there on the couch, staring at the TV screen as they repeated the numbers. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, 49. Harold's birthday. My birthday. Our wedding day. The numbers I had been playing faithfully for 6 months. "Mom, are you okay?" Tyler asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just sat there as the announcer continued talking about the jackpot amount, $49 million. $49 million, Vanessa said dreamily. "Can you imagine having that much money? We could buy a mansion, travel the world, never worry about bills again." "Must be nice," Brandon added. "Some lucky person just became set for life." I excused myself and went to my room, my hands shaking as I pulled the lottery ticket from my wallet. I checked the numbers 3 times, then 4 times, then 5 times. There was no mistake. I had won $49 million. But as I sat on my bed holding the winning ticket, I realized something important. The ticket was in my name, bought with my money, but Brandon and Vanessa didn't know that. They had no idea I even played the lottery. Tomorrow, I decided, I would tell them. But tonight, I would keep this secret and see what kind of people my family really were. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those numbers. 7, 14, 23, 30, 1, 42, 49. $49 million. More money than I had ever dreamed of having. But more importantly, it was my ticket to freedom from this house where I was treated like a burden. The next morning, I made breakfast as usual, watching Brandon and Vanessa rush around getting ready for work. I kept the winning ticket hidden in my robe pocket, my fingers touching it every few minutes to make sure it was real. "Tyler, don't forget you have that science project due Friday," Vanessa called out as she applied her lipstick in the hallway mirror. "I know, Mom. Grandma Dorothy is helping me with it tonight," Tyler replied, giving me a grateful smile. "Just make sure she doesn't mess it up," Brandon said without thinking. "You know how she gets confused sometimes." The casual cruelty of his words hit me like a slap. I wasn't confused. I was sharper than both of them put together. But they had convinced themselves that I was just a helpless old woman taking up space in their lives. After they left for work and Tyler went to school, I sat at the kitchen table and carefully examined my lottery ticket one more time. There it was, clear as day. Dorothy Peterson, purchased on March 14th at George's Corner Store. My name, my money, my ticket. I decided to leave the ticket on the coffee table in the living room, right where someone would find it. I wanted to see what would happen when they discovered it. I wanted to see their true colors. Around 3 p.m., I heard Vanessa's car pull into the driveway. She came through the front door talking loudly on her phone about some real estate deal that had fallen through. I'm telling you, Janet, if people would just stop being so picky about every little detail. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw the lottery ticket on the coffee table. Janet, I'll call you back, she said, hanging up the phone without taking her eyes off the ticket. She picked it up with trembling hands, checking the numbers against something on her phone. Her face went completely white, then bright red, then white again. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Brandon walked in 20 minutes later to find Vanessa dancing around the living room, waving the lottery ticket in the air like a flag. We won! We won! We won! She screamed. Brandon, we're millionaires. We're rich. We never have to worry about money again. Brandon grabbed the ticket from her hands, his eyes scanning the numbers frantically. This can't be real. This has to be a mistake. It's real. I checked it 5 times. We won $49 million. They hugged each other, jumping up and down like children on Christmas morning. I watched from the kitchen doorway, waiting to see how long it would take them to ask where the ticket came from. It took exactly 37 minutes. Wait, Brandon said, suddenly stopping his celebration. Where did this ticket come from? I don't remember buying it. I didn't buy it either, Vanessa said, her excitement dimming slightly. Maybe Tyler bought it? Tyler's 16. He can't buy lottery tickets. They both turned to look at me standing in the doorway. Mom? Brandon said slowly. Did you buy this ticket? I could have told them the truth right then. I could have explained that it was my ticket, bought with my pension money, and that the $49 million belonged to me. But something in their faces stopped me. Something greedy and calculating that I had never seen so clearly before. I found it on the table when I was cleaning, I lied. I thought one of you must have bought it. Well, it was in our house, Vanessa said quickly. That makes it ours, right? Absolutely, Brandon agreed. Finders keepers. And that's when I saw exactly who my son and daughter-in-law really were. They didn't care where the ticket came from. They didn't care if it belonged to someone else. They just cared about the money. The celebration that followed was unlike anything I had ever witnessed, and it was about to get much, much worse. The silence that followed my question was deafening. Vanessa's hand slowly reached for the lottery ticket on the coffee table, her fingers trembling as she picked it up. Brandon leaned over her shoulder, both of them squinting at the small print at the bottom of the ticket. Dorothy Peterson, Vanessa read aloud, her voice barely a whisper. Purchased at George's Corner Store, March 14th, 2:15 p.m., Brandon continued, his face growing paler with each word. They both looked up at me like they were seeing me for the first time in their lives. But how? Vanessa stammered. You don't have money to buy lottery tickets. You barely have enough for your medications. I walked slowly to my favorite armchair and sat down, taking my time to get comfortable. After 6 months of being rushed and dismissed, I was going to savor this moment. Oh, but I do have money, dear, I said calmly. $5 every Tuesday, to be exact. The same $5 I've been spending on the same numbers for 6 months. Harold's birthday, my birthday, and our wedding day. Brandon's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. But you never said anything about buying lottery tickets. You never asked. You were too busy complaining about how much my food and medications were costing you to notice where I went on my Tuesday walks. Vanessa dropped the ticket like it had burned her fingers. This is impossible. You're just a confused old woman. You probably found this ticket somewhere and forgot. I reached into my robe pocket and pulled out a small notebook. Would you like to see my records? Every Tuesday for 26 weeks. Same store, same clerk, same numbers. George can verify every single purchase. I opened the notebook and began reading. March 7th, ticket number 4,471. February 28th, ticket number 4,398. February 21st, ticket number 4,325. I looked up at their horrified faces. Should I continue? Brandon sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. This can't be happening. We already made plans. We called our jobs and quit. Vanessa put a deposit down on that BMW. You quit your jobs? I asked, genuinely surprised. Before you even claimed the money? We were so excited, Vanessa whispered, tears starting to form in her eyes. We thought we were finally free. Free from what? Free from taking care of the woman who raised you? Free from showing basic human decency to your own mother? Tyler walked through the front door at that moment, his basketball bag slung over his shoulder. He took one look at his parents' devastated faces and my calm expression and immediately sensed something was wrong. What's going on? He asked cautiously. Your grandmother just stole $49 million from us, Vanessa said bitterly. I didn't steal anything, I corrected firmly. I won $49 million with my own money, bought with my own pension, using numbers that mean something to me and my late husband. Tyler's eyes widened as he looked at the lottery ticket on the table. Grandma, you won the lottery? Yes, sweetheart. I did. That's amazing, Tyler said, his face lighting up with genuine joy. I'm so happy for you. The contrast between Tyler's reaction and his parents was like night and day. Here was a 16-year-old boy showing more maturity and kindness than two grown adults. Brandon suddenly jumped up from the couch. Wait. Mom, you can't be serious about keeping all that money. We're family. We've been taking care of you for 6 months. Taking care of me? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what you call it? Making me feel like a burden every single day? Complaining about every penny I cost you? Telling me to go die? We didn't mean that, Vanessa said desperately. We were just excited about the money. We said things we didn't mean. Oh, but you did mean it. I've been watching you both for 6 months, seeing your true colors. Do you know what I heard you say about me just last week, Brandon? Brandon's face went white. Mom, You said I was a waste of space and that you couldn't wait for me to die so you could have your house back. Tyler gasped. Dad, you didn't really say that, did you? Brandon couldn't meet his son's eyes. The shame on his face told Tyler everything he needed to know. And you, Vanessa, I continued, told your sister on the phone that having me here was like having a diseased animal that you couldn't get rid of. Grandma, Tyler said softly. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they were saying those things. I know you didn't, sweetheart. You're the only one in this house who treated me like a human being. The room fell silent again, as the full weight of the situation settled over everyone. $49 million. A fortune that could change everything. And it belonged to the woman they had just tried to throw out like garbage. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and sat by my bedroom window, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. Harold used to say that every sunrise was God's way of giving us a fresh start. Today felt like the freshest start I'd had in years. I had made my decision. By the time Brandon and Vanessa stumbled into the kitchen, red-eyed and defeated, I was already dressed and had my suitcases packed by the front door. Mom, what are you doing? Brandon asked, his voice hoarse from a sleepless night. I'm leaving, I said simply, pouring myself a cup of coffee. I called a taxi. It'll be here in 20 minutes. Vanessa rushed forward, her hair still messy from tossing and turning all night. Dorothy, please, we need to talk about this. We're family. We can work something out. Work something out? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. You mean like how we worked out you telling me to go die yesterday? We were wrong, Brandon said, dropping to his knees beside my chair. Mom, I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over us. The money made us crazy. No, Brandon. The money didn't make you cruel. It just showed me who you really are when you think you don't need me anymore. Tyler appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas. Grandma, where are you going? I'm going to buy a nice little house by the lake, sweetheart. Somewhere peaceful where I can spend my golden years in dignity. Can I visit you? He asked, his voice small and sad. Of course you can. You're welcome anytime. You're the only one in this family who remembered that I'm a human being with feelings. Vanessa fell to her knees beside Brandon. Please, Dorothy, we'll change. We'll treat you better. We'll make it up to you. How? I asked. By pretending to love me because I have money now? By being nice to me because you want something from me? That's not love, Vanessa. That's manipulation. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where I had spent the last 6 months feeling unwanted and unloved. Do you know what I've decided to do with the money? I asked, not turning around. What? Brandon whispered. I'm going to give most of it away. To charities that help elderly people who have nowhere to go. To organizations that build homes for seniors who can't afford to live with dignity. To places that understand that old people aren't burdens to be tolerated, but human beings who deserve respect. Most of it? Vanessa asked hopefully. I turned around and looked at my son. Brandon, I'm going to give you exactly what you gave me these past 6 months. Nothing. His face crumpled. Mom, please. But Tyler, I continued, looking at my grandson, I'm setting up a college fund for you. Full tuition, room and board, whatever you need. Because you showed kindness when your parents showed cruelty. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. Grandma, I don't need your money. I just need you to be happy. And that, sweetheart, is exactly why you deserve it. A car honked outside. My taxi had arrived. I picked up my suitcases and headed for the door. Brandon and Vanessa followed me, both of them crying and begging. Mom, you can't do this to us, Brandon pleaded. We quit our jobs. We have bills to pay. Then I suggest you find new jobs, I said, opening the front door. Maybe this will teach you the value of hard work and treating people with respect. We're your family, Vanessa cried. I paused in the doorway and looked back at them one last time. Family doesn't tell each other to go die. Family doesn't treat each other like burdens. Family doesn't throw each other away the moment they think they don't need them anymore. I hugged Tyler tightly. I'll call you tonight, sweetheart. And remember, you always have a home with me. As the taxi pulled away from the house, I didn't look back. I was 72 years old. I had $49 million, and for the first time in 6 months, I felt truly free. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes it's simply walking away with your dignity intact and letting people live with the consequences of their choices. Harold would have been proud.